Fox was born blind in one eye in Woodside, New York, September 26, 1945. Her father died when she was only 2 years old. Her mother, when Chloe was just 14. Her early years were turbulent. She was an orphan, she was handicapped, and she was poor. To say simply that she began life at a disadvantage would be an understatement. But despite all the odds, Flo survived her teens, and at the age of 18, marriage and motherhood came almost simultaneously. In the years that followed, Flo, whose grandfather had been a tailor, went on to become a top fashion and theatrical stylist. At this stage of her life, photography was her favorite hobby. This was the time when she was earning over $1,000 a day as a stylist. And then it happened. In December of 1975, when a chorus line opened, the last show that she made costumes for, the sight in her good eye suddenly deteriorated. Almost overnight, she became legally blind. The end of her photographs, the end of her marriage, the end of her career. It was 2 years before she was diagnosed as having multiple sclerosis. Always a survivor, she adjusted to the situation and accepted her fate. She even began taking pictures again with the help of an autofocus camera. In the last 6 years, Flo's work has become widely recognized. She's at exhibitions throughout the United States, in Denmark, London, and Paris. She's taught photography at the Human Resource Center and at the Lighthouse for the Blind. Asphalt Gardens, a book of her work, was finally published last year. Flo Fox has appeared on most of the major television talk shows in this country and has already become a familiar face to Americans. Her life and times are now the subject of an upcoming NBC television movie with Kate Jackson in a starring role. The following presentation is show number 1 of a series of 13 original programs. I'm Frank O'Dowd, and Flo Fox is a friend of mine.
Look at your book. I understand you have a new book out. It's called Asphalt Gardens.
Yeah, 69 photographs. 69
photographs by Flo Fox. Now, you've taken all of these pictures with an autofocus camera?
Only from 1978 on. I began with a Minolta, focusing and handling all that you have to, depth of field and timing, and now I have simplified it.
Well, we've talked about this before, but maybe you can just briefly tell us why you use autofocus as opposed to any other kind of camera.
I knew you'd ask. I have some difficulty with my eyes. Even with a contact lens, I'm considered legally blind. I usually can fake it on camera. And I use an automatic focusing camera, which does it all for me.
So you don't have to focus?
Not at all.
You just point the camera and shoot?
That's right.
What kind of pictures do you take?
Do you want to look at the monitor again?
I do.
And we'll see my pictures. You show me yours, I'll show you mine.
Okay.
I had this business card made when I was a stylist to bring on more work. It cost me $3 a card to make a C-print. I made this costume for The Tempest when I was working for Joseph Papp for the Shakespeare Festival, when I earned $125 a week. This is when I made a costume for when the Rolling Stones were coming to New York. The 10 top designers were hired to make and wear a costume for their opening. Here I made 4 half dresses to go underwater for a Revlon commercial where the dress had to float just right. She had weights on her to weight her down and keep her hands free. I made a 10-foot bed for a Marilyn Monroe look-alike, and they didn't use the shot, not this way, because you can't, for Brides Magazine, have a bride on a bed. And when I became a full-fledged stylist, I was handed a dress that could have been put on a secretary, but the photographer, Jean Pagliuso, suggested that it should be a safari. And this is the storyboard for the Revlon commercial that won every award that year. Here I made 5 costumes for Hammurabi and his men, 3000 BC. And I learned to make $125 a day instead of a week. This is for photographers Menken and Seltzer. This is for the photographer Steve Steigman, where I had to make a dress for Mona Lisa, and Charles Broderson did all the paintings for the background. Here I worked on the costume, making Santa Claus's outfit for photographer Steve Steigman. When I first began photography on my own in 1972, this was on my 3rd roll of film. It's called Fresh Meadows, a flat tire. This was in 1974 when I hitchhiked all over Europe with my son. It's called the Vatican, taken right in front of the Vatican. This is probably my most famous picture. It's been published. It's been a postcard that sold out immediately. It's called Riker's Coffee Shop, 1974. This is called Someone to Talk to. It's in the days when I had one good eye, shooting with a manual camera. This was for a shooting I did for Playboy. They said, photograph your sexual fantasy. I happen to also want to act it out. This is the first time I got an autofocus camera, and I wanted to see if it could really work. And it was the first day. I walked out with it, took this shot, was curious to see what these ladies looked like, and certainly found out afterwards. This one's called Man's Best Friend, whether it be the leash with the invisible dog or the bottle that he holds up in the air. It's man's best friend. This one also is 1978, taken with an autofocus camera, and it's called Everybody Sucks. Long Island is for Lovers, 1980. And this also is included in my book, Asphalt Gardens. This one's called Pigeon Man. I took it in New Orleans. I walked over to this guy feeding pigeons and said, "Excuse me, sir." Took a few nuts out of his bag and put them in the proper places. This is the cover to my book called Asphalt Gardens. For $12.95, you too can buy it through the National Access Center in Washington, D.C.
We'll be right back after this message.